My name is Riley Anderson, and this is my story. I was born in a small town in rural Arizona, where the roar of military planes crisscrossing the sky was as common as birdsong. My father worked as a civilian mechanic at Luke Air Force Base, and from childhood, I breathed the smell of aviation fuel. By the age of 12, I was already disassembling and reassembling old car engines in the garage at home, under the proud gaze of my father, who always said, "Small hands are perfect for reaching difficult places." When I turned 18, to the surprise of no one in my family, I enlisted in the Marine Corps. What surprised everyone was my choice. I wanted to be an aircraft mechanic. Why not the Air Force? They asked. But I knew the answer. I wanted the challenge. I wanted to prove to myself that I could be part of the elite. The Marines weren't just soldiers. They were a brotherhood of warriors, and I wanted to belong to that world, even knowing I would be one of the few women in my field. Basic training was brutal, as expected. We would wake up at 4 a.m., endure hours of grueling physical exercise, march for miles carrying heavy equipment, and were constantly tested beyond what we believed possible. Every muscle in my body ached in ways I didn't even know were possible. My 1.65 meters and 59 kilograms seemed tiny next to the men who were almost 2 meters tall. But what I lacked in size, I made up for in determination. "Anderson, you're too small to be a Marine," the instructor shouted during a particularly difficult run. I quickened my pace and overtook 3 male recruits much larger than me. "Small but fast, sir," I replied, earning an almost imperceptible nod of approval. When I finally graduated from basic training, I felt an indescribable pride in receiving the Marine Corps insignia. But this was just the beginning. At the Naval Air Technical Training Center in Pensacola, Florida, I began my training as a fixed-wing aircraft technician. The instructors didn't waste time separating the girls from the boys. We were all Marines there, all with the same demand for excellence. In those classrooms and hangars, I learned the fundamentals of aircraft systems, immersing myself in technical manuals that seemed written in another language: electrical circuits, hydraulic systems, avionics, propulsion mechanics. I absorbed it all with an almost obsessive intensity. I spent nights studying while others went out to relax. I had no choice. I needed to be better, work harder. "No more, Anderson. You have 1 hour to identify all these components," the instructor said, handing me a box containing dozens of metal parts that looked identical to the uninitiated. While my colleagues sweated, I smiled inwardly. It was like going back to my father's garage, only now with equipment that cost millions of dollars. After completing basic aviation training, I was selected to specialize in the F-35 Lightning II, the most advanced combat aircraft in the American fleet. The F-35 wasn't just an airplane, it was a marvel of modern engineering, a flying computer with stealth technology. I was assigned to most 6,218 fixed-wing aircraft mechanic, F-35B. The specialized training was even more intense, focusing on complex systems and proprietary technology that few in the world were authorized to touch. "This is no ordinary aircraft," the instructor explained on the first day. "It's a system of systems. You're not just mechanics. You're guardians of one of the most sophisticated weapons ever created." The F-35's systems were revolutionary. The stealth coding required special maintenance procedures. The integrated avionics meant that a problem in one system could manifest itself in a completely different one. The sensors distributed throughout the aircraft created a situational awareness envelope for the pilot, but also a diagnostic nightmare for the technicians. I learned about the Pratt & Whitney F-135 engine, capable of generating over 40,000 pounds of thrust. I studied the F-35B's vertical lift system, a complex dance of ducts, doors, and the impressive fan elevator. I memorized every connector, every access panel, every test procedure. When I finally arrived at my squadron at Mexas Beaufort, South Carolina, the reality of the service hit me hard. The F-35 was new, temperamental, and full of secrets. The manuals were still being written while we worked on it. Software updates arrived weekly, and every little change meant relearning procedures. There, in the main hangar, I faced my first major challenge: being the only woman among the squadron's mechanics. "Look, they sent a princess to fix our jets," I heard on my first day. Collective laughter echoed through the hangar. I didn't respond. I'd let my work speak for itself. In the first few months, I was assigned the most basic and mundane tasks: checking fluid levels, cleaning control surfaces, inspecting panels, rookie work. More complex systems, absorbing every detail. At night, I studied technical manuals, memorizing diagrams, learning procedures. I slept only 5 hours a night, but I didn't mind. I was building my arsenal of knowledge. Sergeant Miller, the maintenance crew, was particularly difficult. A 15-year veteran with experience flying FA-18 Hornets, he looked at the F-35 with a mixture of admiration and distrust. And he looked at me the same way. "Anderson, do you really think you can handle this machine?" he once asked, when he caught me studying the propulsion system diagrams after work. "Yes, Sergeant," I replied simply. "We'll see," was all he said before leaving. Weeks turned into months. The routine was relentless. Waking up at 4:30, physical training at 5 o'clock, breakfast at 6:30, at the hangar at 7 o'clock for the morning briefing. Then 12 hours of meticulous work under the sweltering heat of South Carolina or the biting cold of air-conditioned hangars. There was no room for error. A forgotten screw, a poorly fitted connector, could mean the loss of a $100 million aircraft or worse, the life of a pilot. The F-35 didn't make things easy. Its automated maintenance system, the ALIS Autonomic Logistics Information System, was supposed to simplify our work, but it often complicated it. "The computer says the problem is the radar module," the system would say. But after hours of work, we'd discover the real culprit was a loose connector elsewhere on the aircraft. It was a constant game of detective work where the clues were vague and the consequences of a wrong diagnosis severe. And I loved every minute of it. The intellectual challenge, the satisfaction of solving a complex problem, the feeling of mastery over such a sophisticated machine, all of that. Slowly, I gained small victories. A correct diagnosis here, an innovative solution there. I developed a method for testing flight control system connectors that cut diagnostic time in half. I created an improvised tool to access a particularly difficult panel without having to disassemble half the fuselage. The pilots began to notice the difference in the aircraft I inspected. "The Whiskey 3 flies like a dream after its maintenance, Anderson," one of them commented after a test flight. That kind of recognition was worth more than any medal. But the big moment arrived when he least expected it. It was a Saturday, and most of the squadron was off duty. Only a small team remained in the hangar. For routine maintenance, the Air Group commander, Colonel Hayes, had a demonstration flight scheduled for a group of congressmen on Monday, and his designated aircraft, the Whiskey 7, began to experience flight control system failure. The malfunctions were intermittent. A mechanic's sometimes it worked perfectly, other times it had critical errors. 3 different teams had already tried to solve the problem, without success. "It's not going to fly," declared Sergeant Miller. After hours of fruitless troubleshooting, "The problem is in the OBOGs or the central electric system. We can't locate. We'll need to call in the Lockheed technical team and dismantle half the aircraft." Colonel Hayes, a man known for his explosive temper, was not happy. "Miller, are you telling me we have 20 mechanics in this squad and none of them can fix this? I have 4 congressmen from the Defense Committee arriving in 36 hours. I was in the corner of the hangar checking the maintenance logs of the Whiskey 7 when something caught my attention, a pattern in the intermittent faults that appeared on the onboard diagnostic system. It wasn't the OBOG's onboard oxygen generation system or the central electrical system. It was something more subtle." "Excuse me, Sergeant," I interrupted, knowing I was breaking protocol. "I think I may have identified the problem." Silence fell in the hangar. Miller stared at me with a mixture of surprise and irritation. Colonel Hayes raised an eyebrow. "Keep going, Anderson," said the colonel, ignoring the sergeant's gaze. "The logs show that the failures always occur during altitude and temperature transitions. It's not a problem in the large systems, but in the pressure sensors of the avionics cooling system." The fiber optic connectors of the J37 series have a history of microfractures when exposed to repeated temperature cycles. It doesn't show up in standard diagnostics because the redundancies system automatically compensates. Miller seemed skeptical. And how do you intend to fix this without disassembling the entire ventral fuselage access panel? I can access it through the auxiliary maintenance compartment using the digital endoscope. If the problem is what I'm thinking, I can apply the heat-conductive sealant directly and reinforce the connections without major disassembly. The colonel looked at Miller, who shrugged. It's worth a try, the sergeant conceded. I worked methodically for 6 hours straight. First, I confirmed my theory using advanced diagnostic equipment. Then, with the endoscope, I identified the problematic connectors. There were 3 with microfractures exactly where I suspected. Using specialized tools that I had modified myself for this type of work, I applied the heat-conductive sealant and reinforced the connections. The challenge was maintaining millimeter precision while working blindly, guided only by the endoscope image and touch. My fingers ached, my eyes burned from intense concentration, but I didn't hesitate for a moment. He knew exactly what he was doing. It was almost midnight when I finished. My eyes burned, my back ached, but my mind was clear. Ready for the test, Sergeant, I announced. Diagnostic tests began. System by system, everything worked perfectly. The final test was a full flight simulation with changes in pressure and temperature. As the minutes ticked by, the entire hangar seemed to hold its breath. And then, the verdict. All systems operational, 0 faults. Colonel Hayes, who had surprisingly remained the entire time, broke the silence. Impressive, Corporal Anderson. Very impressive. It was at that moment that I realized something had fundamentally changed. It wasn't just the colonel's recognition or the reluctant respect in Sergeant Miller's eyes. It was the feeling that I had proven something, not to them, but to myself. In a world dominated by men, using only my knowledge, intuition, and skill, I had solved a problem that others couldn't. On Monday, the demonstration flight was perfect. The Whiskey 7 flew as if it had just rolled off the factory floor. Colonel Hayes made a point of introducing me to the congressman. This is Corporal Anderson, the best F-35 mechanic in the Navy, he said. It wasn't true. Of course, there were Marines far more experienced and qualified than me. But at that moment, I allowed myself to believe him. In the following weeks, the changes were subtle but significant. I received assignments for more complex systems. The other mechanics began consulting me about difficult problems. The jokes and derogatory comments gradually ceased. Sergeant Miller called me into his office a month later. Anderson, I'm recommending you for the technical leadership program. You have what it takes. Thank you, Sergeant, I replied, surprised. Don't thank me. You earned this, he said before adding, but don't think I'm going to go easy on you. In fact, my expectations are even higher now. He smiled. I wouldn't expect anything different, Sergeant. The following months were a period of intense learning. I began leading small teams on specific maintenance tasks. I learned to delegate, to trust others, to teach. I discovered that being a leader meant not only having technical knowledge, but also knowing how to get the best out of each team member. A year after the Whiskey 7 incident, I was promoted to sergeant. The ceremony was simple, as is tradition in the Marines, but meaningful. My father traveled from Arizona to see his daughter receive her new insignia. I always knew you'd go far, he said, his eyes shining with pride. With the new patent came new responsibilities. I now supervised a full team of mechanics responsible for the maintenance of 4 F-35Bs. The work was demanding, often frustrating, but deeply rewarding. Each aircraft that took off under my supervision was a testament to our meticulous work. The F-35 continued to evolve. New software updates brought new capabilities, but also new maintenance challenges. The ALIS system was replaced by ODIN Operational Data Integrated Network, supposedly more efficient, but still with its quirks. We adapted, as always. In 2020, I received orders to join a detachment aboard the USS America. It's an amphibious assault ship equipped to operate the F-35. It would be my first real experience with maritime operation. The environment aboard a ship was completely different from a land base. Limited space, challenging working conditions. and the constant movement on deck made each maintenance task significantly more complex. But there was something strangely familiar as well. The cramped hangars reminded me of my father's garage, where I learned to work in confined spaces. My small hands once again proved to be an advantage, allowing me to access compartments that other mechanics found difficult. During an exercise in the Sea of Japan, we faced a particularly difficult challenge. One of the F-35Bs experienced a critical failure in its vertical lift system shortly after a flight. The pilot managed to land conventionally, but the aircraft was effectively unusable for STOVL, short takeoff, vertical landing operations, the main reason we have F-35Bs on an amphibious assault ship. The initial diagnosis pointed to a problem with the ventilator lift modula, crucial component that would normally require a return to base for maintenance. But we were days sail from the coast in the midst of a critical exercise with allies. We have to try to fix it here, I decided. After studying the diagrams and error logs, my team seemed skeptical but trusted my judgment. We worked for 36 hours almost continuously, sleeping only in brief intervals. We disassembled parts of the aircraft that should never be touched outside of a specialized facility. It was a calculated risk, based on in-depth knowledge of the systems and confidence in my team's abilities. And it worked. When the F-35 finally made a perfect vertical landing on the deck after our repairs, the feeling of accomplishment was indescribable. The ship's commander personally came to thank us. "You've just written a new chapter in the maintenance manual," he said. And indeed, our improvised procedure later became a standard emergency procedure for similar situations. After 3 years at sea, alternating between deployments and returns to base, I was selected for an instructor position at the very school where I began my journey in Pensacola. It was a rare honor for someone so young, but my experience with the F-35, especially in challenging environments, made me an ideal candidate. As an instructor, I found a new passion, shaping the next generation of mechanics. I saw in many students the same fire I had when I started, the eagerness to learn, to master complex systems, to be part of something bigger than themselves. And I also saw something new. More women following the path I had helped to open. What's it like being a woman in the Marines, especially in aircraft maintenance? A student asked me after class. Difficult, I replied honestly. You'll have to prove your worth repeatedly. You'll have to work harder, study more, make fewer mistakes. It's unfair, but it's the reality. But I can also say that it's worth every second, because when you earn respect, it's based purely on your competence, not on who you are or where you come from. She nodded, determined. I'm ready. In 2023, I received a promotion to staff sergeant and a new assignment, maintenance team leader in the newly formed F-35 Tactics Development Squadron. This was a unique role, working directly with test pilots to evaluate new capabilities and develop combat tactics for the Lightning II. The job combined advanced technical maintenance with a broader understanding of the operational mission. We weren't just maintaining aircraft, we were helping to define how they would be used in combat. It was an immense responsibility and an incredible opportunity. During a tactical development exercise, we worked closely with pilots to optimize the F-35's performance in missions suppressing enemy air defenses. My team developed a specialized maintenance procedure that allowed for rapid reconfiguration between missions, significantly increasing the rate of available sorties. "Anderson, you understand what we're trying to accomplish here," Major Wilson, a veteran test pilot, told me. "Most engineers only see the machine. You see the mission." That was true. Over the years, I had developed a holistic understanding of the F-35, not just as a collection of systems, but as a combat platform with a strategic purpose. This perspective allowed me to anticipate maintenance and optimize procedures in a way that others couldn't. In 2024, the unexpected happened. I was selected for the Technical Officer Program, a rare route from enlisted to officer, reserved for exceptional technical specialists. After intense additional training, I was commissioned as a technical officer, responsible for overseeing all aspects of maintenance for an entire fleet of F-35s. The cycle was complete. From the young recruit who faced skeptical glances to the respected officer who led hundreds, from the rookie who knew nothing about the F-35 to the specialist who wrote maintenance procedures and policies. Today, my team includes men and women from diverse backgrounds, united by the same passion for technical excellence. When I see the young, newly arrived Marines facing the same stares I faced years ago, I make a point of reminding them, your small hands are perfect for reaching difficult places. The F-35 Lightning II continues to evolve, with new systems, new capabilities, and new challenges. Just like it, we continue to adapt, learn, and grow. Technology changes, people change, but some things remain constant. The precision required to tighten a critical screw, the satisfaction of hearing the roar of a perfectly tuned engine, the pride of seeing an aircraft you've maintained take to the skies in perfect condition. Sometimes I think about that day in the hangar when an angry colonel, a skeptical sergeant, and a determined corporal found themselves facing a seemingly unsolvable problem. It was just one moment in a long career, but it was a moment that defined possibility. Last week, I visited the training school in Pensacola. I spoke to a class of new technicians, 2/3 men, 1/3 women, a much better ratio than in my time. I told them about the F-35 systems, about the technical and logistical challenges they will face, about the responsibility they will bear. And then I told the story of Whiskey 7, of the problem that no one could solve, of the solution I found when I was allowed to try. I saw the young Marine's eyes light up with recognition and a sense of possibility. It doesn't matter who you are or where you come from, he told them. What matters is how you think, how you work, how you respond when all other systems are failing. At the end of the day, it's not about gender, race, or origin. It's about excellence. As I walked through the training hangar afterward, among the simulators and model aircraft, I realized I had come full circle. From a girl tinkering with old engines in her father's garage to a technical officer training the next generation, the Florida sun set through the hangar windows, bathing the F-35 simulators in a golden light. I touched the metallic surface of a training model, feeling its texture under my calloused fingers. So many years, so many flights, so many lessons. That night, I emailed my now retired father, telling him about my appreciation and the new recruits. He replied with a simple message. I always knew you'd go far. Small hands, big accomplishments. I smiled as I read your word. Of all the battles I've fought, all the systems I've repaired, all the challenges I've faced, perhaps the most important was the simplest, showing that in aircraft maintenance, as in life, it's not the size of your hands that matters, but the precision with which you use them and the perseverance with which you tackle each problem. Tomorrow, I'll return to my unit. There are reports to review, systems to inspect, teams to lead. The F-35 continues to evolve, and we evolve with it. The quiet mechanic the Marines used to mock has become the specialist they look to when all else fails, not for gender, not for looks, but for undeniable competence. And when the roar of the engines breaks the silence of dawn and the F-35 majestically rises toward the clouds, I feel the same shiver down my spine that I felt as a child looking at the Arizona sky. Only now, I know exactly how every piece of that marvel works because my hands helped keep it in the air. This is my story. A story of determination, resilience, courage, technical excellence, and the quiet power of proving your worth through concrete actions, not empty words. In the world of military aviation, as in so many other fields, respect is not given. It is earned screw by screw, system by system, flight by flight. And in the end, what really matters isn't being the first or the only one. It's being undeniably good at what you do. So good that your competence speaks louder than any prejudice. So good that when you fix an F-35 Lightning II in front of the commander, nobody questions whether you belong in that hangar. Because you belong, because you earned your place, and because when everything is at stake, it doesn't matter who you are. What matters is that the aircraft flies.